Hi, everyone. For this episode of A Guy with a Scarf, I'm happy to have with me from a very nice place, it looks like, Scott Gutterman, SVP Broadcast and Digital Technologies at PGA Tour. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Carlo, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for being available for this conversation.
Absolutely, happy to do it.
So let's start with Scott, as always.
Yeah, so I'm here at the PGA Tour. I'm the senior vice president of broadcast and digital technologies here at the tour. I'm oversee effectively one third of our technology organization. My responsibilities are largely to get our content into the hands of our fans through all kinds of devices and through all kinds of platforms and mediums. So part of my team on the broadcast technology side, they're actually responsible for gathering all of the action, all of the content from the course, all the play from the course, working with our rights holders, and then delivering that to our fans through ESPN Plus, Sky Sports, Canal Plus, and all kinds of different places all around the world. So that team runs all of the technology, what we call the below the line production, from the course, the compound of the course, all the way back here. Where we will produce the PGA Tour live on ESPN Plus in the States and then across other platforms, and then get it out to all across the world. The other half of my team is responsible for all the digital stuff. So they're responsible for websites, apps, AR, VR, all kinds of emerging platforms that are coming up. They're also responsible for the infrastructure that supports all of that. So working with AWS, we have a full technology stack that supports the feeding of all of the data that comes in from the course, and all the video comes to the course in a way that our fans want it. And we work in collaboration with the other two technology groups here at the PGA Tour. The other technology groups are the Golf Technologies Group, which is run by my colleague Ken Lovell, who effectively is running what we call ShotLink here, which is all of the scoring that we do across all of the tours here at the tour. We run four tours altogether right now. PGA Tour Champions Tour, which is the seniors tour, Korn Ferry Tour, which is the developmental tour, and then PGA Tour Americas, which is in Canada and Latin America. So Ken's team is responsible for all of the scoring. So we gather all that data, put it out across both the broadcasts, the streaming, and all of the digital platforms. And then my second colleague, who runs the third group, is Mike Vitti, who runs all of the IT infrastructure here at the PGA Tour and our data science team as well too. So the three of us kind of joke that Ken and I gather up all of the video and the ShotLink information. Ken pushes all the ShotLink information to me. I make sure it gets delivered all across our platforms, both for linear streaming and digital. And then Mike Vitti helps us make sense of it all through his data science team. So it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun working here with everything.
Yeah, looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, I'm sure there has been a lot of evolution in the last, 5-10 years. So some question, because of what I've seen happening myself. How has the the production part evolved through the years? Do you have a smaller footprint now?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Before the new rights deals started in 2020, we actually did not really control much of the production. It was really with our production partners. And so we took over the below the line production. So the broadcast technology teams basically brings 8 trucks onto site every single week to an event. We set up the TV compound. We set up all the fibering that goes across the course to capture everything through the cameras, typically through RF. And then we bring all the camera equipment. We bring all the equipment that's needed to manage that over 4 days. And then what happens is, and we have the production trucks where the talent actually sit there on site. And what our TV partners do is they bring in NBC and CBS. They will bring in their talent, their producers, their camera people, and they'll work on top of what we do. So that was a very big change for us. We built it's actually 9 new trucks over the first 2 years, and then launched them early last year in 2024. State-of-the-art trucks that we built with NEP, and they are very well planned and great trucks for us to use. And so we're very excited. That's one of the biggest areas in production that we've changed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, on one end, maybe technology can help you, not in this case because you weren't present, but make it easier on venue. but there are so many things more than you're doing now
Yeah.
in terms of video data and the complexity of the technology that maybe in the end it's never too more simple or simpler.
Yeah, it's funny because you did ask if we had a smaller footprint, and so in some cases we do. Like in particular with the ShotLink data that I was talking about earlier, working with Ken Lovell, the ShotLink is produced using 155 cameras and 36 radars across the course right now, and so that's a really fascinating thing that Ken's done, and Ken and his team have to bring in all the networking and fibering that supports all that. But what they used to do is they used to have all the what they would call the ShotLink producers, and these were the team members that actually monitored what was coming in on ShotLink. They all used to be in a truck on site all the time. When we deployed the new camera system and the radar system, we actually brought that team back here to headquarters here in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And now they work out of our headquarters building here. So we did reduce some of the footprint by putting more and more into the cloud and delivering it, while also actually increasing the complexity of how we actually capture and deliver all the scoring on site.
And on the other end, do you see the production going centralized at some point, or it's not for golf?
No,
what do you see?
It's definitely getting centralized. What I described earlier was how we manage the network productions. We actually, for the ESPN productions and the PGA Tour Live productions, we manage them from top to bottom, not just below the line. So we actually produce those ourselves. We use our own talent, and we capture everything on the course with our own cameras. That gets brought back here to PGA Tour Studios. We're working out of 4 studios here on the road, and the talent. There's walking commentators that are on course, but when you see somebody from a desk or you see talent doing an interview with a player, they're actually here working out of one of the 4 studios here. And again, that actually allowed us to bring the production back here for PGA Tour Live. And it's one thing to say to make it more complex, but we actually made it more rich because we have many more tools for us to use working out of this building, which we just launched. The new building we just launched in January. It's a new 165,000 square foot facility here right next to our global home.
Sorry, by the way, you're calling from a real place. So everything I see behind you is real.
Yes. Yes. I'm not in a studio. This is actually the nice view out of my office. Sunny Florida day here in the spring. So it's beautiful outside right now.
No. So for sure, I mean, I've been involved in the Olympics, and my friend Yannis Exarchos managing OBS has a very complex task. But golf, I think, because of the nature of the sport, it is a huge complexity. I think 2 times I remember when technology was not available. So there were things you couldn't possibly do, and now you can do. On the other end, also the fact that can I say the storytelling is not linear. Still add complexity. I don't know how much people appreciate that. Maybe if it's still, is it still an issue, or now you have a model, you know what you're doing? I'm sure you know what you're doing. I mean, are you at the optimal level of what you want to do for the storytelling, or not yet?
Not yet. We're still learning. And you point out, like, I've been at the tour for 20 years. I started here in 2005, and essentially it was a website, and we did 3 hours of golf a day. And that was about it. But now, because we can produce so much more content, the complexity is definitely up. We're at a place now where we are showing more golf than we have ever shown before, but we are still not yet for every event showing all the golf through video and linearly. You can see every shot replicated in our digital twin in Tourcast on our platforms, where it's effectively like a video game watching. It's watching all the shot trails go around, and you can see that happen. And we now back in 2020, we actually started a new program at the Players Championship called Every Shot Live, and we were the first professional golf event to show every single shot live from the very first drive to the very last putt. And what we do there is we follow every single group, and we capture every shot as they go through. And that's about 30,000 plus shots at a full field tournament. And so we do that right now at just the Players Championship, but we're looking at expanding that eventually. But really, the opportunity to expand that's really about how do we continue to reduce the costs to actually do that versus being able to produce it so we can produce it every single week. And it's eventually going to be a combination. We're getting very close to it with Ken's 155 cameras, our cameras that are on the course. We're getting really close to being able to do it. And we think a lot of things that we see developing in the field of production with AI and machine learning and a few other things are going to actually probably get us there in the next couple of years to be able to do that on a regular basis.
And between the three or two of you, because maybe only two of the people you mentioned, you and Kevin are on venue. How many people you have at the top event?
Oh, let's see.
Sorry, both on venue and there. Sorry, just
yeah. So here in the building, typically on a production day, we're looking at about 150 people running about 4 studios. So we're on 4 studios. Now with World Feed, we're running 6 studios at least. Plus, we're running 6 control rooms, sometimes 7 control rooms at the same time. The building overall has 8 control rooms and 7 studios, so we're pretty busy on those days. So that's about how many we have here. I can't remember definitively what we have on site, but if you're talking about like just a production team and camera people, you're probably talking somewhere between 50 to 100 people on site. Just on our side of this, that doesn't include the ShotLink technology teams, which add probably another 30 to 40 people.
Yeah, so it's a massive endeavor.
And it's part of because we're moving circus every single week. So it's not like we can have people staffed up in certain areas. We got to, 1 week we're here in Florida, and the next week we're up in Hilton Head in South Carolina, and then we have LA and all kinds of places to go.
Yeah. And so let's move then on the front end of things. So let's. I think the podcast side. I'm sure there is a lot of things you said, but let's go directly to digital for a bit my passion. And so, tell me about the touch points that, as a golf fan, I can use from, and maybe a bit of quickly the evolution of that. As you said, it was a website.
Sure. So digital is
PGAtour.com.
Yeah. It's when I got here again, it was just the website. It was just PGAtour.com. I got here in 2005. The iPhone comes along in 2008. Then you followed up with the apps and app stores. That's when really things take off. Really, mobile web begins to take off. So you start to go through this period every 3 to 5 years where you have the website, then you're adding a mobile web page, then you're adding Android and iOS, mobile phones, mobile apps. Then you're adding multiple types of apps with multiple types of people that want your content. That starts to become social media. So you have Facebook emerging, Twitter, those types of things. I ran the content team here for a little while, and then you begin to continue to expand out to Google search, Yahoo search, things like that. So our point of view has become more of really we want to draw people into the owned and operated platforms, but we also now want to meet everybody wherever they are and however they want to consume golf, right? Because our goal is to put golf in front of everyone, the best players in the world playing on the best courses. And so really what has happened over between 2005 and now, it's continued to aggregate the number of places, number of platforms that we have to serve on the digital side of the house. And now also we're seeing what I would kind of call the new wave, which is all of the AI platforms, right? They're getting into sports. So you can Perplexity and Anthropic's platforms, Claude, OpenAI, Amazon's platforms as well too. Like they all are acting as web search platforms in some way, fashion, or way. So if somebody wants to know how Justin Thomas won at the RBC Heritage, you can just ask Claude or OpenAI. So we have to learn how to serve all of these different platforms.
They're becoming front ends. They're becoming search engine front ends.
Exactly.
So one specific question. I saw Perplexity doing, again, to my observation, and it was a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, I wrote an article on that, launching a vertical on sport. Maybe the first AI platform that is so big platform that is doing that. So I'm asking questions, you answer what you can answer. But in those cases, are they becoming like a partnership case, like it can be, Snapchat or Instagram?
Sure.
Or do you have agreement to feed data? Because I tested at the beginning with OpenAI when maybe only ChatGPT was usable. And I was trying to, because 8 teams were in UEFA Champions League of Italian teams at a certain point. And I couldn't get I spent 2 hours just laughing because everything was so sorry, I can use the word because it's my channel, fucked up, that I say, oh, mamma mia, they need something, they need a bit help for the day. I mean, and you know how much they improve by themselves. So what is the relationship between this platform and we went to AI directly, but that's
Well, we're in a very similar place that we were at the beginning of search and web search and the beginning of social media, where there's a combination of these things that are going on. We don't currently have partnerships with any of the big AI platforms at the moment. It's certainly something that we're talking about. We do have a great relationship with AWS, who's our official AI cloud and ML partner. So we work a lot on AI with them and their models. So like we help feed the Alexa platform from that perspective. But with like Perplexity, OpenAI, Anthropic, and some of the others, what you're seeing them doing is they're reaching out to the Stats Perform and the Sport Radar world,
the aggregators
and the aggregators, and they're using the aggregators data. So like Perplexity, I saw the same thing you did too when they launched. They were, as far as I know, they were the first to launch a sports vertical on a general AI platform, and Perplexity Sports, where you can ask specific questions and you actually get back ESPN like or PGA Tour like box score, what we call a box score statistics. Really lay out very nicely the competitions that are happening. And it's got, I agree with you, like in the beginning it wasn't very good, but it's gotten quickly better, as you would expect. And as a matter of fact, I was looking at Gemini earlier today to see how it was reporting back on the RBC Heritage event we had last weekend. It's amazing to see the things, because like we do work with Google, we work with YouTube quite a bit through our posting our own content there. We have a relationship in that respect, and also through an event that we call the Creators Classic that we have now a few times a year. And so you can see, like in Gemini, they are beginning to weave in the results of what we post in our highlights. So if you ask Gemini to say, hey, tell me how Justin Thomas did last week in the RBC Heritage, it not only gives you a nice summary of sourced from our content from that we have through search, but also it'll go into YouTube. It'll look at the YouTube video and actually give you time-stamped summaries where to look in that video for the highlight that Justin Thomas had made when he won the event last week. So you can see these platforms are merging very quickly, and I think we're all trying to work out like what does it mean to be a part of that ecosystem, and what does it mean for us to want to make sure that golf gets into as many hands as possible. Also, what kind of partnerships will develop on that? And I expect that over the next, probably quickly over the next year or so, probably maybe even faster, you'll begin to see those emerge.
Because I think what is different, and especially PGA Tour, I think at some point, you, meaning as the organization, decided, okay, we need to own this. We cannot own, meaning we need to control as much. But in the past, everybody would go in media, especially people with that old, sorry to say, media rights or broadcast mentality. Oh, it's a platform there, so that's ours. It shouldn't be there. Or I think everybody, most of the organization like PGA Tour are at a moment where they understand that they need to be everybody. They need to play in every field. But again, it's really a new paradigm, this one, because people are like, I use 20 tools every day, and I'm starting to get things from there. So it's clearly, I think now you're more educated to the challenge, maybe, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's really what we're all in this phase of, is trying to understand how these new platforms, new AI platforms will use the content, how they will present it, how fans will use it. I think you're seeing a lot of fans use it. I think there's going to be some, I think we're looking at a world that potentially, if you look at it, is what does it mean when AI is the interface that people are interacting?
Exactly.
Right. What is that experience going to be like in 24 or 36 months? If you're primarily using an Anthropic, if you're using Claude, or if you're using an AWS, an Amazon Alexa, or you're using a Google Gemini, how is that going to work when that becomes more a part of everybody's everyday experience, right? As they're moving through their lives and they want to know things, they want to know, who's won the PGA Tour event today, or is their favorite player leading? And are you really going to begin to kind of gravitate as a fan and through your personal life and what you do to one of these agents that gets developed through these platforms, and see how that, is that going to really become the primary way you get information and have it presented to you? So It's something we're really thinking about here over the next. Something we're talking a lot about here about what that means for us.
Mm-hmm. And so going back more to the more standard touch points, if I can say that. So a quick, I would say, summary of there is an app, there is a lot of AR, VR. Can you just do a little map of that?
Sure. So PGA Tour, you can get our great apps on the app stores, on the iOS App Store and the Android App Store. We've done some great work with Apple directly with the Apple Vision Pro. So if you want to watch, check out our events on the Apple Vision Pro, you can check them out every single week. Really fun to work on that platform and learn what that means in that space and spatial computing. We also work with another company called Golf Plus on the Meta VR platform, Meta headset platform. And so we've been excited about that. You can actually play on our courses, be able to play the golf course that the players are playing on as well. So we have those types of platforms that we're working on quite regularly. And then, for us, we're continuing to look at the emerging platforms of what we want to do. We're looking at how content gets developed on those platforms as well. So those are kind of what I would call our core. Of course, the website, shouldn't forget the website. Yeah. The website's a very active. Our apps tend to be for our core fans on the digital side.
Yeah,
we see a lot of repeat use and a lot of time spent on the apps. The website has some what I would call casual core fans, but also casual fans. So something extraordinary is happening, and fans are going to Google search. That's where we're driving a lot of information as well too about our players. So website's still very much a very strong player. And really most of our engagement, when we look at it on the digital owned and operated platforms, is really about mobile. First and foremost for us, mobile web is the biggest consumer area. Mobile app is a very big second. And then desktop for us is usually third. We think typically most of our consumption is over 80% on the weekends on mobile web and mobile app. And about 20% or less is typically on desktop. We have a pretty strong desktop audience on Thursday and Friday because everybody is at work. They have a nice screen typically, and that's what they're able to do. So those are really the core digital platforms for us. And then you have, for here in the States, you have PGA Tour Live on ESPN Plus. So our streams are going out on PGA Tour Live there. And then, of course, on our other rights holders as well, too, you have Paramount with Paramount Plus. You can watch our events there that are on CBS. And then NBC Sports, they have Peacock, of course, here in the States.
Yeah.
And then Sky, they're part of Comcast, so they have Sky Sports in the UK as well, too. And then you'll find us on different apps across the world.
Some years ago, you decided not to have your own OTT, right? I was a bit involved in that venture.
So it's just a matter of how you're right. Just like for everybody else, how the rights deals work out. We don't serve live streaming video direct to our fans from our platforms. It's all with our rights holders. So we are. I think those things really get dictated by the rights holders. Yeah. Really, the broadest audience that we are trying to reach.
And so where are the shuttling data going? What is the best way to leverage or to consume the biggest extent of shuttling data for a deep fan? I would say clearly for a deep fan.
Yeah. So really our fans, that's what people come to our owned and operated platforms for, right? The leaderboard on the PGA Tour platforms and the leaderboards anywhere else are the main consumption area. And when you go to a leaderboard, you're getting that core leaderboard experience, who's leading at the top, how well are they doing, things like that. But you can slowly begin to take a deep dive into how a player is doing or watch multiple players at the same time. We have beautiful graphics that represent every hole.
Yeah.
You can see the shot trails going around on every single hole. So if you open up a page, you see a scorecard, you'll get a shot trail and a graphic as well there too. So you can get pretty deep there, and then you can dive even deeper into individual stats or stats for groups of players going into that as well. So if you want to see who's leading in driving distance, greens and regulation, like we have all of that. Like and it's all dynamic and moving because like we talked about earlier, 18 fields of play. You got 14 golf balls in motion across the course at any given point in time. There's 70 plus data points for every shot. And so we really tried to present it in a composite, in a really interesting and composite way. If you want to go even deeper, we have, for our hardcore fans, we have our Tourcast product, which is our digital, which allows fans to see every single shot represented in digital format. We have beautiful maps in there of every single hole. Our own teams, the ShotLink teams, do mapping capture with LiDAR and radar across the course weeks and weeks in advance, and capture every single object and tree on the course. We even have the structures on the course and signage. So you'll see all kinds of fun things that are out there that people put out on the course.
And what is the reaction of fans to that?
Well,
this is the things I've worked all my career is this kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, look, the most consumed thing by far on any of our platforms, and like any other sport, is our scoring platforms. It is the leaderboard. So the fans are very, very much into that. We are constantly talking to fans, trying to get new features. So like we recently added shot plots, so you can see where prior shots have been hit on things. We also have win probability through our data science team. We've added that. And then you're going to see some new features here in a few weeks where we're actually adding, like, we created a new algorithm here that effectively is going to show you who's performing best, who's hot on the leaderboard, moving up and down the leaderboard, and who's the best performer at that moment in time. And so we're, through machine learning and other work that we're doing with the data science, we're trying to do that. So, our fans really like to see things that help bring the attention to the players that are performing the best. And really the leaderboard is the beginning of being able to do that.
And in terms of generative AI, I saw you announce something recently, but have you been, because everybody's testing things. So we put all these cartoon things or the little Muppet puppet. But I mean, you really need to integrate, adopt, change the workflow. So otherwise it's just
exactly
useless.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Just like everybody else in 22 and 23, 24, we were really spending a lot of time with the AWS Generative AI Center, beginning to understand, like, how do these tools work? What do they mean? How do they work in sports? Do they understand our sport? Do they understand our sport when it's live? So we had to go through a learning curve to really understand what it is, and it was a lot of fun actually for us, because at the same time we're learning what these tools do. The tools are just like, every week we've got something new that's coming out and new improvements. So we went through that in 23 and 24. About mid 24, I started asking the team, I was like, all right, I think we've learned a lot. Let's create a portfolio of things that we believe are going to be important to, like, what's important to the business and what's important to our fans. And then operationalize it. And what's important to our fans and for us is to be able to tell the story of all of our players. And a challenge in telling the story of our players is what we've talked about, which is, how do you tell the story of 150 players in a PGA Tour tournament, 70 or 50 of whom are all playing at the same time? We've never been able to scale our coverage for every single player.
Yeah, I can imagine.
With staff, you can only cover 10 or 15 players. So this is the answer for us. Is like, okay, we can use these tools to scale our coverage. And so the beginning of that for us was, how do we tell a story about every single shot on the PGA Tour that's hit? And so our first project that was launched back at the Players Championship this year was narrative commentary for every single shot. And using AWS Bedrock, Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet models, and a set of services that we have built around them, which is really important, we were actually able to get to a point where we are telling a story about every single shot, all 30,000 shots now. We present that in Tourcast as narrative commentary, and every piece of commentary presents a fact and context. So instead of just what we used to do traditionally, would say, Rory McIlroy hit this drive 385 yards, and he's got 125 yards left to the hole. That would be the basics. Now the story that we're able to tell is, Rory McIlroy just hit a 385-yard drive on the 18th hole. It's his longest drive of the day. It's the longest drive he's hit. So it's the longest drive he's been hit on that hole so far. And at 125 yards out, he's got a 10% chance of putting it within 10 feet. So we're telling the story, like, what's important about that shot, telling it within the context of everything else. And when we can tell what we decided, and we've operationalized all that, and the challenge in operationalizing it is getting the models to understand the sport in context live. So we had to build a set of context services. Says you got to take into it. You got to take a bunch of things into account of where Rory is and where other players are at that point in time. And then not only do we build these context services, but we also built the validation services on the other side of it, right? So that when data comes in and it gets passed into the models, we make sure that that 385-yard drive, when it goes in, when it comes out of the model, it still says it's a 385-yard drive. But also, more importantly, is just as important actually, is when we're talking about a drive, it has to be within the realm of a reasonableness for talking about a drive. So you have to use we use a method called cosine similarity here and run through vector databases that says, oh, this is a comment about a drive. Does it sound like, or does it read like all of these? We have thousands and thousands of what we call golden set examples of drives that fit in that context. And if the data is right and the context is right, then everything automatically gets published out. The nice thing is, why this all sounds, and it is very complex, we are usually getting that commentary out within a minute or less of the shot being hit, quite often under 30 seconds. And so it has to happen very fast because everything's very fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So one question more on the tech side, because I just realized I'm using now Sonnet 3.7.
Yeah.
Have you gone through the process of saying, okay, we need to update? How dramatic is or would be? Do you have already experienced and say, okay, let's move? Because I think normally with normal software, it's scary.
Yeah.
But it's kind of humanly manageable. Yeah. With these systems, I don't know. Sorry. Maybe it's a problem you have on your hands now. I don't know.
No, well, that's part of, you're right. Like, you have to, the way we've started thinking about this, you really have to think about the SDLC, like the software development life cycle for this, just like you would anything else. And that includes exactly what you're talking about, is that just like we always have to upgrade, iOS throughout the year and then big upgrade throughout the year, like we have a method for doing that and how we approach it or practice. We have to develop the same practice for these platforms. And what you're talking about is model evaluation. So you're right. What happens when Claude Sonnet 3.7 comes out? We got to run it through all the testing that we ran it through to make sure that it's still going to interpret everything the right way. We also have to make sure that the costs difference of the model are not drastically different between the two models. Is it reducing our cost to use it, or is it increasing our cost to use it? So we have to look at it from that perspective. And then not only that, but and we're starting to do this now with the harnesses that we've built, is you've got to be able to test multiple models, the same thing against multiple models, because there might be a case to be made that says, we've been using Claude Sonnet 3.5, but now this new AWS Nova model just came out, and actually it's just as good, but it's half the cost. And so how do you so now you're in this world now where you're going to be like, how often do I run through those tests? How often do I check against multiple models? And our team here, we really like the Bedrock what Bedrock brings to the table, because it allows it to be model agnostic. I don't want to have model lock-in, right? Because that doesn't allow us to maybe achieve all of our goals. So it's really been a learn. But you're hitting right on it. Like, that is just one of many practices. The other is like, how do you continually monitor to make sure that the context is always within the reasonableness of is always like accurate. The accuracy rate is within 96% or 98%. I think we looked up and humans are typically 98 or 97% accurate. So we try to be in a range like that, but we had to build a monitoring system, and a bunch of observability practices to make sure that that's being monitored, so that it doesn't, if it starts sliding down to 95 or 90, then we know we got to go check out what's going on with the system, and either shut it down for a bit until we have it corrected, or make the corrections that we need to.
Yeah, because I think that the perception is that this model, compared to traditional software, which already can be super complex, they have kind of a life of their own. So you never, at the moment, you're never sure that they don't start to hallucinate. Maybe in a specific case, like you would have a bug on the other side. But I think the complexity here is neurally different, I guess. That's if you want instinctive impression. So we spend a lot of time on that. Sorry, but it's really fascinating.
No worries.
So clearly, innovation is at the heart of what you're doing for a reason. I say not because it's at the moment it's not in your title, but even if it was, there is a concept of innovation that seems permeating the organization. What is your approach to that?
So
As it evolved.
Sure.
In the last
So,
years.
gosh, it's probably been about 8 or 9 years ago. We approached the organization here from the digital side to start a very particular innovation program, where I actually had a budget set aside for it, and I actually hired 2 people to run it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the organization come to me and asked and said, how can we begin to get ahead or look ahead of where we need to be for our fans? And I said, well, look, if we need to be able to test things and try things out and innovate in a space that is innovate in spaces that we see coming. And so we started a very particular innovation program at that time, and I ran it, and it was great. And we did a lot of neat things. Then we worked with Microsoft on the HoloLens. What else did we do? We were one of the first sports to live stream.
I did too.
I did too. We were one of the first sports to live stream in VR and in 360 with a company called Vogue VR that was eventually bought by Intel. We used to stream 17th hole here during the Players Championship. So we did all kinds of really neat things. But what ended up happening over time is that those innovation practices that we developed began to make their way and work their way into the rest of our teams and the rest of our organizations. So what we did is we began to ramp down the explicit innovation program and began to move it into each of the into our development teams and into our product teams and into other departments at the tour. And so really what it did is it began a culture of innovation across the organization, and our work helped show the organization that, and look, our work resulted in sponsorships. Our work resulted in us being able to understand where to go on new platforms. And so the organization got very supportive of all of that. And so now it's kind of like I still have the people here that were running that program, but every department's responsible for innovation. And some departments have specific innovation budgets still. In particular, our broadcast group, not my broadcast technology group, but the TV group, they've got an innovation budget. And one of the really fascinating innovations that they've had over the last year is what we call drone AR, which is using a drone live to present live shot trails at an event as they're happening. And it's a really fantastic, like if you ever see it in the golf broadcast, it just looks really cool. And you see the stroke trail go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's a combination of us working with a company called ARL and our drone team here and a couple of our network partners. And so that's the kind of thing that we continue to try and deliver.
And so forget for a moment PGA Tour and golf. If there is anything else in your life, because, when you're so deep into one sport, is there another, I would say, touch point? It can be an app, it can be a big screen experience that you're particularly fascinated by, or
Sure. So I look at, for myself and for just out of interest and for work, we're always looking at in sports. I'm always looking at what the NBA and the MLB and the NFL guys are doing, and like even like at places like SailGP and MotoGP, like those guys do some really neat stuff. And I know some of the folks in those places, so they're fascinating to watch. But I also like look around at media companies and see what they're doing in their apps or in their experiences. I'm going to be actually really interested to see what ESPN's doing when their new platforms get ready to roll out here at the end of the year. I think that's going to be a sea change for what we're doing. And then I am looking at, like, we look at social media, some of the social media companies and the AI companies right now, because social media companies are media companies, and we all have learned, like, can remember when Snap and then Instagram built out this, vertical stories, portrait stories, and now TikTok is doing them.
I think that's not celebrated enough.
Yeah,
the vertical story. I created an app, a platform, a SaaS platform that was called Sporteller, to recreate those on owned and operated. Yeah, and because I saw it, I said, this is so cool for sports. I mean, you can tell a story in a much better way than on traditional website, because you have your own registrar. But the stories moment, I think, was I mean, we're all addicted, and
we all use them. We all use them, and we all and now we all have them on our platforms, right? So we're all working with WSC Sports and others, and we present that content. So I tend to look at those sites. So those are really where I and from what you can tell from what we're talking about, like I'm spending a lot of time on the AI platforms too.
So my next question maybe is useless now. What is your focus? What is your passion project? Before going to sleep, you still want to check what?
Yeah, it is what you think I'm going to say it is. It's it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day, and like, there's always some technology coming along that I'm personally excited about. When I was a
Exactly.
kid, and when I was a kid, I learned how to code, in BASIC, and before I started taking it in high school. And this is way back. This is in the early '80s, and so for me, I like having I get excited and get my hands on technology, and that's really what I do. And it's been that way with the AI work as well too. And I am fascinated by what I find myself able to do. I have two college age kids that are getting ready to graduate college, and they're using, watching them learn how to use these tools for their
So
lives.
are you vibe coding in the family?
Vibe coding in the family, we almost not quite, not quite. I haven't got the kids to vibe code yet, but yeah, we're getting there. And then learning, like I'll sit and learn how to do it. It's fascinating for me to learn how to use it and see what it is, because I think this is just like, we all talk about these waves that happen, but just like with this is equivalent to to the emergence of the commercial internet and we're seeing that, regardless of, like, there's a lot of hype about a lot of different things. And I think there's people talk about whether we're going to get to AGI or all these other things, but like the reality of this is a fun thing that I've learned over the last 24 months and playing with these things myself and then working with our team on them is we're just catching up to what's been, all of us are catching up to what was put out, 6 months ago, 12 months ago. What's coming is going to be absolutely fascinating from what we're seeing. But like this stuff rolls out, like you and I both seen this over the years. This stuff gets rolled out. We all need time to think about it. We all need time to figure out, and we try to do it quickly, but we all need time to figure out how to work it into our business. And then and more importantly, we need to see how people use it. And so that to me is what I really, I mean, my team is probably, I drive them crazy with articles and white papers and looking at large language models and small language models and, like the fascinating, stuff that, to me, one of the other big things that's fascinating right now is, devices, like how all this is getting worked into everyday things that we use and the work that Meta is doing now.
On that, sorry, just to see how I still have the impression that in terms of devices, there's nothing that changed our life as the smartphones.
That's right.
At the moment, I don't see the replacement. And the amount of change in our life, I mean, not our techies' life, I mean, in everybody's behavior life. Yeah. More than the smartphone, I still don't see it. Maybe it will be the glasses. I don't know. I'm not too. So what's your opinion?
We have the same conversation here all the time. We have to look at it from, like, not us, but the folks that are 10 or 20 years behind us that are getting these devices. I'm not sure you're never going to have a smartphone, but I'm very sure that the way you interact with it's going to change drastically.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to need a screen. I think you're going to need them, but we're all wearing watches that give us information.
Yeah, I normally do. Now it's late here.
Right. You look here. You're often looking here first before you take your phone out. I think when it gets here, and I've had a chance to see some of these devices, it's amazing how quickly they're moving. But when you're at a golf tournament and you know that you're following a player like Rory McIlroy or Justin Thomas, and your agent on your phone knows that's who you're following, I want people in a lot of ways. I want people to be heads up at an event, right? You hear
absolutely. In that case, absolutely.
Right. So in that case, why not just have a little thing in the glasses, or maybe you don't want anything in front of you, but you can simply ask through your glasses, "Oh, what's Rory's score?" Or have it proactively tell you, it knows you arrived at the hole and Rory's on the tee box. It can tell you automatically, "Oh, Rory's up by 6. He's leading by Rory's up by 6. He's at 2 under." And so, like, that to me seems like as those conveniences begin to develop, it's going to be really interesting. The other thing I saw today was Meta just updated a lot of their glasses with translation. The AI able to listen and translate in a conversation. And I'm like, like, yeah, that seems like a thing that would be really useful in a lot of cases.
That for sure. And to be honest, I don't understand why. I have a lot of things I see. Even my father is an 89-year-old ex-professional photographer. I see a lot of YouTube videos, and I want to send it to him. He does a lot of stuff with technology, but doesn't understand good level English. And I say, why is not like, give me a button, I translate, I take responsibility. If it's not perfect, I don't care. Right. Why can I not translate him? So have him listen it in Italian, for example.
Right.
So
that's exactly right.
I think it will come. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think, like I said, I think one of the precursor movies. You talk about movies that represent technology, but the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, I think is a very compelling assessment of the devices and how we might interact with devices in our lives. I'm not sure it'll go all the way as it did in AGI movie, but I think the way that they show device usage in that movie, which is largely small screen when you need it, audio as a regular piece of engagement, I think is realistic.
So a distracted smartphone. Let's create a new term. Va bene, let's stop it here. Otherwise, I continue blah 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 for too long.
No worries.
No, I think so. Real thank you, because I think you described and you opened. Your massive plate, as we said at the beginning, to all of us. I think it's very fascinating, and I like when I talk to people that I see they have the same urgency and passion that I had for so many years. So thank you for doing this, Scott.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a great conversation.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the beautiful weather then.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Go get a good night's sleep.
Ciao. Grazie.
Thanks, Carlo. Bye.